So some really exciting news now. We have what looks like the first mobile support for Avalonia. So we've just had this post you can see here, and it mentions now that Avalonia in preview 11.1, which is now out, should support mobile. So we're going to have a look and try and get this up and running and take a look at it now. So I've done nothing but see this post, and I thought it's perfect to go through this together and see what we can do. So having a quick look at it, basically we have a Nougat package, so we can just update the Nougat package in the application. And if we go to their website, I now noticed further down somewhere here, we now have developing for mobile. So there's a section here we can go through. So let's first just go through a new project where it isn't the current project we're working on. We just start from scratch and see if we can get it up and running. And then we'll try and migrate our Avalonia loudness meter over to the new one. So I guess the place to start is here, which is creating the cross-platform applications. It mentions that the .NET templates support mobile from 10.13 onwards. So if we do .NET new, and I think it's update check and update apply, we can see that Avalonia does have an update available, and it's 10.18. And we currently have 10.14. So in theory, we have a new enough version, but we might as well go ahead and update anyway. So let's just do update apply, and that will upgrade the Avalonia to the latest. If you don't have it installed already, you simply just do this command line. Let's just make a new folder on the desktop, cd into it, and let's create a new project. So we can just do .NET new avalonia.xplat for cross-platform. So that's the recommended project type now, which is different than the one we used. I believe we used avalonia.app before. So let's use this cross-platform. And now on the desktop, we have a project for us. So let's just open this with, in this case, Rider for us. And let's take a look at this. It will create the UI project with views and view models, an Android, a desktop, for all three, an iOS and a web, interestingly, which we also don't have at the moment. So this should be completely different, and I have a feeling we probably need to manually port everything over. So I've got a feeling this won't be as simple as, just applying the changes. It's probably better starting with a new template and then moving over the current single page we have in our application. So luckily this has come out early enough that the port won't be a big issue for us, hopefully. So that's opened. Let's see if it builds. So we've got to run Nougat package restore. So just right click, manage packages. This might kick off the download for us, I'm not sure. Try again. So it's not kicking off the Nougat for us automatically, which is what I would have thought would have happened. Let's try the good old trick of just restarting. Sometimes that kicks it in. And you can see now restoring packages in solution at the bottom. And just errors everywhere. So that doesn't work for a start. Let's take a look at the documentation, see if it mentions anything about needing to do anything else. So we'd need to do these steps to run Android, but in terms of building the application, that should be building. So let's just open this instead. And I don't know whether we can do this, but let's open it in Visual Studio instead of Rider. Let's just see if this template works for Visual Studio. So we'll let this download the updates as well. Make sure we got the latest .NET SDK and all the latest stuff. And then we'll attempt this build in a moment. Okay, that's the two installs done now. We had one that was updating Visual Studio and the other one saying we needed .NET workloads that weren't installed. And now the project is open. Can we just press play? Let's see if this works. Or if we get any more info if it doesn't work of what's going on. Okay, so this is opened up. Can we run this one maybe? Build start. So this is going further than Rider did. This is actually building and running stuff. So Visual Studio is currently working. And presuming everything's installed for Android, which we haven't gone through yet, we'll go through the guide if not in a moment. This may or may not spin up an Android emulator, I'm not sure. Build successful, but nothing's doing anything, nothing's popping up anywhere. So this is what it looks like it installed for us when we did the workload thing, when we clicked that button. Installing Microsoft Runtime WebAssembly SDK, AOT SDK, so all these things were needed by the looks of it to build this project, which Rider didn't do or didn't prompt to do. So it may be worth updating the documentation that this kind of .NET workload thing needs to be installed. But as for why this is doing nothing, we have no indication of anything. We're just running the project, just seems to build the project. So we might need to do something else to emulate and deploy, maybe. And this is grayed out. So see if we can run the web one, see if any of these actually run. So the web one runs, and we have localhost 5000. So let's see if we can see that. And there we go. So the web one's even running. So we have what looks like the app in the web, which is cool. We have the desktop one, which did run. Let's just check that still works. Yep. Let's try the iOS one because we are on a Mac. That's even grayed out. So start debugging project maybe. Because run project isn't enabled. And again, that seems to build, but there's no obvious way to run. So let's just close that down a moment. Let's open it back up in Rider and let's just see. Here we go as well. I've just noticed. In order to get it running on Android, it tells us to do .NET workload install. So I'm guessing this would have been needed first for it to work in Rider. But because we've used Visual Studio, I'm pretty sure it's gone ahead and ran these commands for us. So it's maybe already in the documentation there. Reopen this project. There's no more exclamations there. So I'm thinking the problem, oh, hang on, no, now they're there. Maybe this is still going to have a problem. Oh, it's gone back all green. So it looks like, can we just do build solution? Will this actually build now? Yeah. And it builds them, and one fails. Android fails, cannot find Android, so we're not set up for that. So it does just look like we probably need to follow these environment guides before we can really build. So you can run this command yourself, or you can open Visual Studio, and it seems to have done that step, the workload. Now there's SDK. If using Visual Studio, follow this guide, and we're currently using JetBrains Rider. Let's just open both and see. So let's go through the Visual Studio one first. Now, my concern here as well is it's starting to mention Maui and Xamarin and things. So it's not really, I know it's not directly Xamarin, and I'm hoping that it only uses the parts of Xamarin that work and we don't start introducing all of these Xamarin bugs, because I've used Maui for a project last month and it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible, including Xamarin as well. So I'm hoping this does not just simply bolt onto Xamarin and be absolutely awful, but we'll soon find out. Tools SDK Manager. So Tools SDK Manager. You may not be able to build Android projects for the SDK in the state. The components in the SDK can be repaired. Okay, repair them. We haven't even done anything and they're apparently damaged. So I'll leave that to download in a moment. And let's take a look. So I'm guessing we just need to select some platforms. Doesn't really say. Just says what they are. Locations of SDKs. Click the Reset to Defaults buttons to cause the manager to look for SDKs. Tools tab. Emulator. So I'm guessing because we've installed Visual Studio that most of these are on. So let's check the SDK box. I'm making an assumption we need that. Go to Tools, Locations, Reset to Defaults to search for them. Can't find NDK. Let's just apply changes first, see if the SDK installs the NDK, and let that finish. While that's installing, let's see if we need anything else. We have the emulator selected already. We selected the SDK. Platforms, we selected some. There's not really much other info there. I think it just basically is telling us to select the SDKs. Alternatively, you can install Android from command line. So I'm guessing if we do it for Visual Studio, it's going to do it for JetBrains as well. It's not installing it into Visual Studio, and it's not installing it into JetBrains Rider. It's just installing it on the system. So I'm guessing it's just using the tools in each IDE to do that job for you. So JetBrains Rider can use different Xamarin SDKs, for example, one for Visual Studio. However, if you do not have Visual Studio on your machine, you can use JetBrains Xamarin SDK. Okay, so it does actually use different ones for each package. So install Visual. Oh, really? So to install it for Rider, it tells you to install Visual Studio. It says just make sure to check the Xamarin iOS and Mac on the Rider install page, which we already have it installed. So that means what? Uninstalling it and reinstalling it. So this isn't a very pleasant install guide. For iOS and Mac, install Xcode, which we have. Start the installation of Xamarin Android on the environment page of JetBrains Rider settings. So it sounds just like it's in an environment. Preferences, environment. Looks like they're installed, from what I can tell. So let's just go back to Visual Studio and hope that when this is installed, that's all we needed to use as Visual Studio's install to get an Android SDK, which we didn't have. The downside, though, is that iOS should be working because we've got Xcode installed. And you can see we have Xcode there. We had a test project that made sure it worked. So Xcode's already installed regardless of that. And let's see if we can run it. Sign identity developer. And there we go. So maybe this does work now. So I just had to right click and run it twice. And there we go. So we have what looks like the application running. So already got the view models baked in. Let's just see if we have any kind of hot reload, which I highly doubt. No, we do not. Let's see if restarting works. Nice, and that's pretty quick as well. So that's working on iOS at least for a quick test, which is good. Android didn't work, it failed. So now we've installed the SDK. There's the NDK. I think we need to install the NDK as well. Let's just check that. In fact, no, let's leave that off to see if we do need it. So we installed the SDK and we installed, I think that was it. I think we just installed the SDK that wasn't installed. So now let's go back. We've installed that using Visual Studio. Let's see if Visual Studio's Android works first. The project Avalonia, Android requires Android SDK components that are not installed. Okay, install them as well. So I think Visual Studio is kind of doing a lot more of it's installing 31R1, which is what I thought we'd already installed just. I thought that's what we literally just did. No, so we installed 32. 31 isn't even an option there. But if Visual Studio is handling it for us, then for now it's a quick and easy way to at least get it installing. The other option I'm guessing is to set the Android SDK in here. This doesn't appear to be doing anything. So it runs the build, it succeeds, but doesn't deploy. Maybe I'm missing something there. Okay, so let's just go to Rider now. Maybe this will need restarting, but let's just try and run the Android one and see if it finds that SDK now. Okay, so build succeeded, which it didn't do before. And it's found a device. And I think that's actually my phone plugged in at the minute, which it isn't. It's just deployed onto my phone. So there's an accidental success. That's actually full on deployed to my phone first time. So that's pretty cool. Let's just change this down to Pixel 5 then. Try deploying again. But that's pretty cool that it's just worked first time. It just seems that the initial setup and install of things is slightly odd. Emulator process has failed. Is that because that's not installed or what? Okay, so that doesn't like running that. Okay, so the emulator Avd Manager. There we go. Let's try this. I see. So this is warning that we need to download. And then we've got to accept licenses. So you can see it's not very self-explanatory. A lot of this kind of clicking around and installing things is memories of using Xamarin and obviously doing mobile development anyway. I kind of know what to expect and what's needed. But I'd say the documentation is a little bit, it's not unclear and it's also not super clear. So we obviously need the workloads installed for it to work, which Visual Studio prompts more than Rider does about you are missing things, please install them. So I'd say if we were using Visual Studio, we opened this project, it warned that we didn't have the SDKs, it warned that we didn't have the .NET framework, tools and workloads. And then when we build, it warned that we didn't have the Android SDK, and we went to Tools and SDK Manager and just selected them and installed them. It's kind of a lot more informative in Visual Studio. Rider just basically fails. It just says, it doesn't work. So we've managed to get it at least deploying to my phone and running on an iOS emulator, which is really good. And now we just want to, let's run this check anyway here. Mentions also this check. Sees if you have everything installed that you need. Again, my other concern is it mentions Maui. Now, we went through this and Avalonia isn't based on Maui. But now, it's using Xamarin, and it's also using Maui checks. So both of those slightly concern me with, what exactly is being used and what's now the link between Avalonia and Maui and Xamarin, because Xamarin is full of bugs, thousands upon thousands of bugs. Maui is awful. I've used it for a client last week, and it's not stable. It's not production ready. Avalonia, on the other hand, is really nice and stable. So I'm a bit concerned that we're now starting to see words like Xamarin and Maui used in Avalonia. But we'll see how that pans out. Yeah, I'm not sure what that did. That should have installed the Maui check. Yeah. And now we can just run Maui check, basically. And of course we can't. So, okay, we've got to run that first to get them in the path. If we read what it says, add that to path and now run Maui. There we go. So this is at least a nice check. There you go. It's not got build tools for Android. It's not got system images. It's not got command lines. So accept the fix, yes. And let's hope that isn't part of something already downloading somewhere like this. Which luckily that finished by the looks of it. So back to here. So I'd say this Maui check's probably a good thing as well. I don't know how much this would check and prompt you to download and install. But it all seems, bear in mind, it is in preview still as well. It all seems a little bit, there's prompts everywhere, left, right, and center of what to install and where to get it from. But we're getting there. It is working. So let's just crack on with that. And let's see what it tells us to do. So .NET Build and Run is what Visual Studio and Rider will do for us. So we don't really need to run them manually. Although it isn't working in Visual Studio at the minute. So we might end up dropping down to command line to see this working. So let's just let this one finish, and then we'll go back to Visual Studio and try get it up and running. Now it's finished that, it's also saying that workloads aren't installed, even though I'm pretty sure they did get installed. Or in this case, at least it's saying manifest, but it's saying the check on workloads is failing. So we'll fix that as well. And now even that tool's failed, where the path is empty. So even the tools aren't working. So let's just kill everything. Let's terminate that. Let's kill the simulators. Let's kill the command line. Let's kill Rider. Let's kill Visual Studio. And let's start the command line again. And let's try the Maui check. And of course, that now no longer works. Got to export the path again. And let's see if this fails again. So workloads appear to be the problem, but it failed to fix them last time. Apparently none of the workloads are there. Nope, it just fails. Also reckons Xcode is not installed, even though Xcode is clearly here and is installed. So the Maui checks are also not really to be trusted, I guess. Okay, so let's just ignore that now. That fails as well. And let's see if, I don't know, let's see if Visual Studio is working now. So if we go to Android and Pixel 5, which was downloaded by the manager, so at least that now should be in. Click Run. And we know the build for Android works because it's on my phone. It has gone to the phone. And the emulator's up, which is a good sign. So I'm pretty sure this will succeed. And there we go. It's now pushed to the Android emulator. So that's now working. So we can turn that off. So Android's working. Let's try desktop again. Let's check everything's still working. Run that. Yep, desktop works. Let's try iOS. And let's select, I don't know, 13 have we got? 13 iOS, something like that. Start that, which I don't think we've tried in Visual Studio yet. This worked in Rider. So this should work in Visual Studio as well. And there we go, that's popped up. Nice, that's working. And the web finally. So to start a project. Safari, no, use Edge please. Start. And let's see if this opens the browser or whether it just prompts you with the URL that's going to run. It'd be nice that it opens the browser. Otherwise, it's a bit of a crappy developer experience that you have to manually open the browser every time you click run. And it's just the crappy developer experience. So build output, there, package console, there, application output is the only place you spot it. And again, I know this because of ASP.NET Core stuff, but that's the only way you know this is even running. So we can copy the address there and go to localhost 5000, and there's the app. So the good note is we have an application now that is literally running flawlessly so far in Android, iOS, the web, and the desktop in Visual Studio. So let's kill that and open Rider. And let's see if this now works. So up here we can select the type again. So we'll select desktop first and run. And desktop works nice and snappy. Select iOS, which we know worked from before. Let's do 13 again. Run that. And that works. Sweet. Now for the test that didn't work, Android, Pixel 5, and run. And couldn't start AVD. So that's the actual Android device. Let's try once more, and if not, I guess the option, can't start it. So if we do Avd Manager and just start the emulator, this can't start it. So this doesn't want to work. Yep, this just doesn't work. There's no please file a bug, so it's just completely not working. Okay, so let's just try if we go into Visual Studio. Where is the manager? So if we open the device manager here, and let's start that emulator, I'm wondering whether it's just something to do with Rider not being able to start the emulator. So if it's already running, let's see if we can now deploy. There we go, that looks like it's going to deploy now. And there we go, it's just deployed successfully. So it seems like the main problem is just, the only problem we have really is Rider can't open, at least on my instance, it can't seem to open this device manager. Hang on, let's see if that's working. Close that. I never really tested, I think I did actually. Yeah, like it can't start it. So it's just some strange error with this Rider. So let me know for the people who are using Rider if you get the same issue. I can always try a reinstall. I can figure this issue out. But I've got a feeling with, to be honest, how many unknowns there are here and how many little steps to installing things. as well as what's already been installed on the systems, a lot of that is going to affect what's going to work or not in terms of what's available, because this MAUI check doesn't work. It's partially working, partially failing. These steps partly fail. These are installed by Visual Studio, not by command line. So already, just from following this guide, there's a lot of variance here that I feel is going to be different across everybody's machines. So what I think is probably best, if you guys see any issues with getting Android or iOS to boot and run and do what I've just done here, is potentially a dedicated video where I'll take a sandboxed Windows environment and a sandboxed Mac environment and try a fresh install from absolutely nothing, so that you guys should be able to repeat and clone exactly what's needed to run Android and iOS. Because I know the pains involved in it working and not working half the time, or these kind of things where Visual Studio has installed something for you, it will be different than what I've installed, or you're running a different version of Rider and you get different issues. So I'm not very confident in how this has just been set up and installed in a sense. It seemed very clunky and very hit and miss. But the good side of it is, at least it is actually running. So what we would probably do for testing on mobile for now is run an iOS emulator in my instance, because I'm on a Mac and it seems to run in both Rider and Visual Studio. And it probably is going to boot faster and build faster as well. And you can always drop to the other platforms to test as you go. But looking at, for example, potentially where this eye is in this layout, I've got a bad feeling that this is just a MAUI wrapper, which, as I mentioned, I've already used MAUI and it's full of bugs, absolutely full of them. So I think we should port our current application over to this cross-platform style, and it looks like it should be a pretty straightforward swap over where we have a single view. So we have a main window. And this shouldn't have changed at all. So we should be able to, other than the fact that it says views now, view main view, and main window has a main view, and main view as a design data context. Yep, so it looks like we should be able to just paste the UI in and do a fairly easy port, and then curiously see what it looks like on mobile.